So we're back here on the Duncan Duo Show talking about the Tampa Bay real estate market. So what is the next market of the moment? Where is all the inventory that Tampa Bay needs to sell? And where I think it is in condo conversions, apartment buildings. There are so many builders that have made apartment buildings over the last 5 years, and so many of those could be turned into condos for inventory in that 200 price range for first-time home buyers. Back in the run-up, we saw a drastic amount of condo conversions, apartment buildings converting to condos and selling, and going through the processes. You know, obviously, Mike, you can speak to this, but getting VA or FHA financing on those is super huge.
The Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac
have to approve.
they're tough to get condo conversions too.
Yeah. So you got to do it the right way. You got to fund the HOA. You got to have good reserves. You can't sell too many to an investor. You know, you've got to have certain construction things in place. But a lot of these buildings were built in the last 10 years. Apartments went up all over the place in the last decade, and there's so many developers sitting on those right now that could make a small fortune turning them into condos and selling them off individually. And there's so many smaller apartment buildings that could do the same, that I think that's an untapped market right now with such light inventory in those price ranges. Well, huge.
One of the reasons they were built so many rental units is because it was much easier for a bank to finance those types of projects, because they have great rental return in our area.
Sure.
We know when we worked with some of the hedge funds, that's why we were targeted, because we had such great rental returns for pricing.
Sure.
Now, it was very easy to get financing for that kind of stuff. What you tend to have to see in order to see conversions or new construction is when you see a lot of these, like some of the units that were built downtown, what you're seeing now is one apartment company will build them, and then another one will come around after it's finished, and they'll actually purchase it.
Correct.
And it's almost like a new build flip.
Sure.
When they're doing that at about $270,000 per unit, once you see them start to approach any higher than that, you'll start to see them start to convert to condos.
Correct.
That's really the tipping point, is about that cost per unit.
Yeah, and there's definitely so many opportunities, even with some of the small apartment buildings. So investors out there, there's so many small apartment buildings, you know, little projects, 20, 30 unit projects all over parts of Carrollwood, South Tampa, Central Tampa, that would be also incredible for a smaller investor. I'm not talking like the big 300 or 400 unit ones. I'm talking more of a 20 and 30, a lot of little singles, so to speak, as I call it. You know, single buildings, you know, 16 units. A lot of those would be incredible opportunities right now to turn into condos. And I don't know why there aren't more people taking advantage of it. Me personally, I think the market, the price run up has been so much. At some point, we obviously talk about a shift. At some point, it has to shift.
Well, the reason why is because of the great rental returns. That's still why. Once those start to go down, I think you're going to see.
Well, and I think what they pay attention to, the better way to pay attention to rental returns, like you'll see someone buy a building for $1 million, and then they're renting it out, and they say, "Oh, it's a great return on my $1 million investment." But is it really if your building's worth $2 million?
But what's interesting,
it's not. In a lot of ways, that percentage, if you take the actual value of the building, not necessarily what they have into it, but the actual value of the building, that's what, you know, I mean, there's plenty of investment properties I'm selling right now because I look at it and say, okay, yeah, it's a great return on what I invested, but what I invested or what I get out of it is irrelevant unless I'm selling it. You know, if I'm just keeping it and I have my own capital into it, yes, it's a great return on investment, but think of the equity you're leaving on the table with, you know, the market the way it is. There's plenty of people that got stuck holding a bag, you know, a decade ago, when they held on to all their property thinking it would go up forever. And there's so many of those small apartment buildings out there where they would make a killing, where they have buildings that they bought, and yeah, it's a great rental return on what they have invested on it, but it's not a great rental return when you factor in what it's worth.
Well, what's interesting is for a long time, you know, these new developments would go in and they would just fill up super quick. And you used to see that back pre-boom days. But then what you started to see is, oh, we're offering 1 month free incentive, 2 months free incentive, 3 months free incentive. And we haven't seen that in a long time for these apartment buildings. But now when you drive around, you're starting to see those again. And it's because the market is so much more saturated. I was just driving around an area yesterday and
for rentals.
Oh yeah. 1 month free rent, 2 month free rent.
Which is why they need to turn them into condos.
Yeah, and once you start to see that, you're going to see them start to convert.
So many of those developers out there, if you're listing calls, we'd love to put a plan in place for you to help you, you know, sell the properties. We've got the resources to help you convert it. We've got, people with the training and sales experience. We've got a lender that can help you get through that process. So if you are a developer, if you're a real estate owner and you own apartment buildings that you have interest in converting into a condo, let us know, because we do believe that the market is short for it. The market's ready for that right now. The market needs the inventory. I don't think we need more rental units. I think there's plenty of those going up, which is why you're seeing them having to do all these creative incentives and offering all these freebies, because they're having a hard time filling them, because millennials now are starting to trend. They're starting to buy. They want to buy.
Well, some of those apartment buildings downtown, if they would put them for sale, they would sell very quickly.
Extremely quickly.
The ones that you can finance, Sky Point, Grand Central, or Kennedy,
fly off the shelf.
They fly off.
Yeah, because people want to live there. Millennials want to live
Yeah.
there. So, well, anyway, we're going to be back. We're going to continue this conversation. We're going to talk some mortgage updates with Mike Yates from Atlantic Bay Mortgage and some Sarasota real estate stats after a quick break here on the Duncan Duo Show.